The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? After watching Undertone, do you think Amber and Scott were frightened to do this episode? Because if they weren't, well, I'll jump on fixing that. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
I am so glad that this show does not use user-provided content.
What do you mean? Oh, do you mean call-ins from people?
Call-ins, emails with 10 MP3s attached to them, stuff like that.
Yeah, evil things.
Evil things.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Cinema IRL. We are talking about Undertone. A podcast host covering spooky content moves into care for her dying mother. When sent recordings of a pregnant couple's paranormal encounters, she discovers their story parallels hers, each tape pushing her toward madness.
Madness!
Okay, so first and foremost, this was the most boring horror movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the Paranormal Activity franchise, those kinds of films, and they usually keep you engaged. I actually fell asleep twice during this film. Now, granted, I'm a little bit tired, but I think if the film had been engaging, it wouldn't have mattered if I was a little bit tired. It was boring.
I mean, it got pretty creepy as hell the last 2 minutes, but
It did.
Was just the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, and they actually had a really amazing promotional display at one of our theaters where they had a whole podcasting booth that you could go in and then you put on the headsets and then you heard people screaming and yelling
and I believe that will be on our Instagram.
Yeah. And
Cinema IRL.
Yes, and there wasn't even a podcast studio in this film, so they literally just made up this podcast studio for this marketing piece, but there wasn't a podcast studio in the film.
Yeah, but you know what? For a lot of people, the kitchen table is their podcast studio.
Well, that's fine. Well, they should have made it her kitchen table instead of actually making a booth. Like you and I actually wanted to move into that booth, and it had soundproofing and little table, and it was nice.
But that is very physically representative of a podcast thing, whereas if you just slam down a table with a mic on it, people might be like, what the hell is this?
Well, that certainly would have been more representative of what actually was in the film.
Well, that's fine. They're just trying to get you to see the film.
Which they did, and they owe me my time back. So basically what this film is about is Evie and her friend Justin, who calls in remotely from somewhere that must be 3 hours ahead, do a podcast that she seems to do at 3 a.m. in the morning or 2:45 in the morning. What the heck?
So, listen, I get people on different schedules. I've been on wacky-ass schedules where me doing something at 2:45, 3 a.m. would have actually been reasonable. But this movie was unrealistic.
You think? Unrealistic how?
There is no doctor calling to give you test results at 2:45 in the morning.
Well, if he just finishes rounds, I don't know what he does in his private time. Maybe he just got done clubbing.
There is no doctor who is going to be like, it's 2:45 in the morning. I'm just now getting the results. Let me make sure I tell her right away.
Or maybe he had him during the day and he was busy. He went out, dancing and dining and other stuff. And then he was like, oh, let me get ahead on the day. I don't know his schedule. You don't know his schedule.
Yeah, I would never expect a call from a doctor after 7 p.m., probably after 6 p.m., but definitely after 7 p.m.
Okay, so yes, I would agree. But he did say, I expect you to get your voicemail. So he wasn't actually calling her to talk to her. It was just, he was calling to get a message. I don't know, some people are weird, and they actually get up at those hours. When I'm still awake at those hours, they're getting up. So I don't know his life. I don't know his story. I don't know what's going on in his life.
Yeah, me neither.
So Evie and Justin have this podcast called Undertone. So that's where we get our film name. And they talk about kind of creepy, superstitious, paranormal, kind of unexplained activities.
Yeah, and I guess they kind of play off of each other. She's the more
Skeptic.
She's the skeptic and he's the believer.
Right.
She is the Scully to his Mulder.
That's true. And for the youngsters who might not know that reference, that was an X-Files reference. So Justin gets an email from somebody that has 10 audio attachments to it. And they end up listening to these audio files on their podcast of a couple named and oh gosh, what was her name? Anyway, so Jenna.
Jenna, something like that, maybe.
Wow, sorry, folks. We have this discussion about him saying she sleep talks, and she says, "No, I don't." So he starts recording what happens overnight, and when he does that, things start happening. She starts talking in her sleep. They start hearing sounds. They hear babies from, I guess, a baby that we think they don't really have. Loud sounds, water turning on, and each audio file they listen to, things start getting creepier and creepier.
Yeah, sometimes people don't believe that they're sleep talking until you record it and play it for them. I've done that before.
Yeah, you've recorded me. Thank you very kindly.
Yeah. It's true.
You do like your surveillance.
Yeah.
So as they go along listening to these files, they're doing their podcast in pieces. Like they'll listen to a couple files and then you'll be like, I'm tired or I'm done. And so it's taking them quite a few episodes to make their way through the films or through the audio files. And well, do you want to take a break and then get into it when we come back?
Well, no. I can only imagine how much time and effort it takes them to edit that podcast and to actually get it ready. Like filming it in all the pieces and then having to stitch everything together. And that would be, then obviously all the cutting of stuff.
Oh gosh, a nightmare.
There's plenty of cutting room floor stuff there. So, and I mean, if they had a good tool, they could probably get it done real fast. And if you want it done fast, you can use Donecast. That is the podcasting software that we use. And if I can be biased, I developed. And it takes hours and turns it into minutes. And allows you to
the editing process,
Yeah.
not the podcast length.
And actually lets you edit while you're recording.
Well, it uses verbal editing, so you just use trigger words.
That's true. If you use the code Cinema IRL when you sign up, I will give you a 60-day free trial. And no one else is getting 60-day free trial, so it's just for y'all.
Okay, so anyway, Jessa is the gal's name. Jessa and Mike are the ones in our audio files. But meanwhile, when Evie is not doing the podcast with Justin, she's taking care of her mom. So her mom is upstairs existing. Like, she doesn't talk. She has stopped eating the last couple days. She just lays there and Evie cares for her. Okay, my first, what would you do? Evie is responsible for caring for her mom, who is mostly just bedridden and non-responsive. And she gets invited to a party by her boyfriend, who she just said that she's kind of over. And she goes to a party and she says tells to her mom, and there's no one else in the house, I'll be back soon, Mama. I'll be back in a couple of hours. And little tart show, Evie comes back the next morning with her walk of shame, puts on a teapot to make something to drink. So what would you do? Don't leave your freaking mom by herself in a house by herself to go to a party with a guy that you're over. And it doesn't even matter, all of those things. Don't leave your mom alone. Number two, if you do leave your mom alone, run up the minute you get home. Don't put a tea kettle on.
So, the fact that she left her mom to go to a party. Now,
Scott's mom, make a note of that. Make a note.
Well, it's also because I use surveillance stuff. I have cameras and stuff like that I can use to check in on people.
That is true.
And still why people don't. Also, when I say a few hours, I would actually mean a few hours, not the next day.
Yeah, not overnight for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, you got to still be able to have a life of some form. And there wasn't a whole lot of maintenance here. So going out for a few hours would have been
But you don't
fine.
leave someone, but it's actually not. And maybe that's just a lack of experience that's making you say that. You do not leave someone alone that is unable to care for themselves. Because sure enough, once Jessa, or not, she's not Jessa, sorry, she's Evie. Once Evie gets home the next morning, puts her kettle on, boils her water, makes her tea, then she comes sauntering upstairs. And sure enough, her mom is on the ground.
Something that she could have figured out if she had a camera.
So, yeah, no, it's not okay to leave someone who needs care by themselves. It is not.
It's fine if you have a camera and you could actually listen.
At the party, you're going to be watching your sick mom all the time you're at a party?
No, but here's the thing. Like, I know with the cameras I use, I can have things triggered on sound or movement. And it could pop up a thing on my phone. Hey, we see sound or we see movement. And then on. I mean, that's the thing is, even when you're caring for them, it's not like you're literally bedside watching them all the time. Like, she could easily fall out of bed while she's there. I mean, if she's sleeping. That's the thing. Like, if someone sleeps for 8 hours a night, it's fairly equivalent to not being there for 8 hours. So,
all right. So, as Evie is taking care of her mom, it appears that things are happening in the house that mirror what is happening on the audio files. So, for example, on the audio files, they hear water all of a sudden rushing in the background, and Evie dismisses it as, oh, they must be having plumbing problems because it's followed up with some loud bangs, like there's problems with the pipe. And then sure enough, shortly thereafter, there is a faucet just running full speed in Evie's house.
yeah,
Full force.
I often can play the skeptic role myself, but going anywhere, and I'm the only other person in the house, I'm not waiting to get freaked the hell out. I'm going to be freaked the hell out right then and there.
Yeah, I'm going to be out. And that wasn't the first thing. One time, the lights came on upstairs, and then Evie's at the bottom of the stairs looking up. There should be no one else in the house. If the lights come on, you get out there and you call the cops. Or when the light, all of a sudden you hear a light switch. When she's in the bedroom, you hear the click, and the light in the bathroom goes on. Run! What would I do? Run!
In IRL, you're not the intruder. Either way, run.
Either way, it is bad news. So what would I do? I would not just hang around out there. At a minimum, she has lights that are flickering all the time. At a minimum, call an electrician. Maybe there's something up with your electricity.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if there's a lot of flickering and stuff like that. I could certainly see, like, maybe faulty or bad. But a faucet turning itself on, there is no amount of plumbing problems in the world that's going to cause that.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those lever ones where you actually have to take the lever and pull it up. I mean, come on. That doesn't just slip.
Yeah, no.
So Evie ignores these things. And she and Justin finally get to the 10th audio file, the last audio file. And all heck breaks loose. There are callers calling in, which are saying scary things. One of them's asking for Mary, which is the name that Evie was going to name her baby, because it turns out she found out she's pregnant during all of this. She was going to name her baby Mary. So there's all kinds of funky stuff.
I also want to note that their window for calling in was 2:30 time.
Where do you get Eastern time?
She said Eastern.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's when I was sleeping. Sorry.
2:30 to 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. Mind you, the show is not live. They're just recording it at that time.
Right.
How the hell are you getting people to call in like a week? Like, they're not even hearing something live to call in on.
That's true. Maybe they did a special live one for that, for callers. I don't know. Yeah, that's obviously a production oversight.
Yeah. Continuity.
So what would you do? You would fire the producers and the continuity people?
I mean, the truth
The
is
writer.
it's fine for it to be in there. It's
All
just,
the actors?
It's just pretty crazy
The
that
production company.
that you would expect people to call in at 2:30 to 3:30 a.m. Eastern time. That just...
Yeah, so all this scary stuff is not only happening, it's happening in the middle of the night. And when that 10th audio file is played and people are calling in saying scary things, and then all of a sudden all this weird music starts happening, and all the while they had been talking about kids' nursery rhymes being played backwards and the messages in there. But the one thing that very clearly happens is Evie's old school clock switches from 3:01 back to 3.
Yeah, 3 minutes and 1 second, and then the second hand goes backwards one.
Yeah, so what the heck's happening there?
Well,
What would you do when all of a sudden you hear this music, you hear the screams, you hear the babies, all these people start calling in with very frightening tales, basically solidifying the notion that everything in these audio files was real?
I'm not really a religious man, but I might be dropping to my knees and saying a few Our Fathers at that point. Because
Our Fathers or R. Kellys? What's another R? I guess, no, we can't talk about R. Kelly.
our
Yeah, I know. It was a joke. It was
I
a
know.
bad joke. Also, too, I need another R. Sorry, folks. I shouldn't be talking about R. Kelly. Bad move. I take that back.
Yeah, at that point, like, Mom, I'm sorry, you were gonna die anyway. I'm running out of the house.
I hope your mom is listening to this episode so she realizes how much peril her future is in.
Well, I just want to note that this was an any day situation. Like any day, she was gonna go.
Well, you know what? And going back to our conversation of a couple of minutes ago, that is why you do not leave your mom and go to a party, because any moment your mom is expected to die. The nurse who comes in basically says, here's the warning signs, a death rattle. She's almost at the time she's going to go. If your mom is almost at the time she's going to go, you do not go to a party. This wasn't a teenager.
Have you ever heard a death rattle live?
Well, you said something in the film that made me think you had.
I did once. It wasn't a human.
Oh.
It was an African gray parrot. But, like, you could tell there was something wrong, and we were literally racing to the vet. Like, I was blowing through red lights in my Toyota Sienna. That's a van.
Why do you say it like that means something?
Because it's just crazy that a Toyota Sienna would be blowing through red lights. Not the car you would expect to do that. And as we got really close to the vet, like, you could hear... and it was just done. Like, it was weird the way it happened. It was just switched into it, and then they were just gone.
Huh. I don't know what to say after that, especially since our listeners didn't see the actual you leaning back of the arm movements.
Arm movements?
Yeah, you were. Ah!
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
we are an audio podcast, not a video podcast.
Yeah. So
it was a good visual.
Okay, so what would you, given that context, again, your mom's going to die, would you still go to the party? You were a bad son.
No, I'm not.
Wow, you were a bad son.
No, I'm not, because...
Sorry, Scott's mom, your son sucks.
It's the sleeping logic.
The sleeping logic?
Yeah, if you're going to be in bed for 8 hours by yourself and you're not going to be able to know
Okay, but if you're at a party, if something happens, it's not like you can just run down the hall and get there. You are not anywhere on site. You are at another location by the time you get there. Like, that could make the difference between life and death.
I mean, it does matter how far away the thing is. If it's like an hour away, then obviously no. If it's...
So the party has to be how far away for you to go to the party versus taking care of your mom?
I'm 5 minutes maybe. And you need cameras. Like, you need cameras.
Okay, so what would you do when she got the party invite? She would have called some sort of tech installer and had a bunch of cameras installed and then made sure that the party was 5 minutes
You
away.
don't even need a bunch. You could just do one.
Okay.
I've got cameras that you can get for $20-25.
You have cameras? Are you selling cameras?
Well, I have cameras in my house that I paid $20-25 for.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
this film ends with Evie ascending into madness, as the description says, of her running around the house and hearing all these sounds. And sure enough, what happens in Evie's house is what one of the callers said, the scary things they were saying about how someone had died in the house at the bottom of the stairs, and the house was covered in drawings of children. And sure enough, Evie's house is now covered in drawings of children that are all over the walls.
I mean, what the hell? When the TV comes on and plays that creepy ass video.
The one that there was, so the movie started off with referencing a video that if people watched, like 94 of the people who watched this video had TV clicks over to watch it, and I'm screaming, no!
Yeah, about the time that I have the TV's power cord in my hand and seeing it still on, if there hadn't been a billion other signs already to get the hell out. Also, let me just give you the big what would you do through all of this.
Okay.
I get that you like to record at 2:45, 3 a.m. After the first recording session, when stuff starts to get creepy, I'm telling Justin, hey, I think I want to do these next couple of episodes during the day.
That's reasonable because you get the impression he's 6 hours ahead. So there's no reason he couldn't do it at 8 o'clock at night, which would be 2 p.m. her time. She doesn't appear to
6
work.
hours ahead?
When
I assumed he worked night shift.
Oh.
He said he had to get to work.
I assumed he was ahead and not behind. I assumed it was 9 a.m. his time, not 9 p.m.
I mean...
Anyway, but yeah, you do the episodes during the day, and you maybe even, I don't know, use the podcast studio at your local library if you're lucky enough to have one. But yeah, you get out of the house. Get out of the... Scary things are happening inside the house. Get out of the house.
Yeah.
It's like when they're flying and they say, put on your own oxygen mask first. Get out of the house, get safe, and then call someone or authorities or whatnot, but get out of the house.
Yeah, and honestly, at that point, you have to determine, is the paranormal activity the house or is it me? Does it follow me? Because if it follows me, then I can go back in the house.
That's true.
So
you can go back in the house and make a sandwich.
This was a very slow movie.
The most boring horror movie I've ever seen.
And it's the exact reason why we are never doing a horror podcast.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not happening.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.